This is Session 2 of the Law Society's 2016 Return to Work programme. Welcome to Session 2 of our Return to Work programme. I'm Keith O'Malley, Career Advisor with Law Society of Ireland. Hi. This video is one of a series of 4 that looks at the whole area of return to work and how solicitors can best organise themselves in this regard. Going back, referring back to the last session, we looked at regulatory responsibilities, we looked at resources available for upskilling, we looked at today's job market and at challenges facing people in a return to work situation. And we finished up with a proposal in terms of where to begin. And that proposal was that you set yourself an objective, you set yourself a goal. There was some homework to do. I hope people were able to do it. We asked you to read a magazine article about a number of people who had gone through career transition. We asked you to look at 2 videos, one by Scott Dinsmore and another one by Adam Braun. And we also asked you to do the 2 workbooks that were provided in last week's session if you needed to do those. One was on considering what suits you best, and the other one was considering your options. Hopefully they provided you with the kind of ideas and the kind of insights that helped you produce an objective, a goal, and hopefully you're coming into this session this week with an objective set. What we're going to do this week is we're going to just touch base on the objective and make sure that you have an objective, and then before we dash off and move on to something else, we're going to ask you to consider those objectives in light of some realities that exist for people in a return to work type situation, and also for the full range of options that exist for people in a return to work situation. And when we do that, we're then going to make a proposal in terms of an action plan, and we're going to, having put in place the facilities you need in order to do an action plan, we're going to move on and look at CVs. The CV is very important for a person who's job seeking, but when somebody's in a return to work situation, it is especially important, and quite often a different format is most appropriate. Before we go on to handle the stuff this week, there's 2 things I want to reiterate from our first session, from session number 1. And the first one is this one on screen. It's this statement, it is not what we are that holds us back, it's what we think we are not. This is really so important in the whole area of career management, but nowhere more so than people in a return to work type situation. It's not what we are that holds us back, it's what we think we are not. And I would really emphasize, please don't sell yourself short. Be bold and think through the full range of options that are open to you, and what you're capable of doing, and don't be Give yourself every chance in terms of be ambitious. The second one is this idea that we touched on when we were talking about uncertainty, and it is more advice. It's take control over the things that you can exercise control over, and don't bother about matters that you have no control over. So there are 2 things from session 1 that I think just need to be emphasised, and what we're going to do now is move on to what we're covering in session 1. And as I said, we're starting with goals and objectives, because hopefully you're coming into this session having set a goal. I'm sure you've heard the acronym SMART, which in relation to goals, and it is important that you check the goal you've set for yourself against this acronym. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So the first check you should make against the goal you set for yourself is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it realistic? And is it timely? And what we're going to do now is we're going to, tease things out a little bit with regard to the goal and objective you've set yourself. And we're going to start by just, covering a number of realities that exist for people in a return to work situation. The first is logistical. If, for example, you have young children, they may need to be, transported to a particular childcare facility that you have in place, and you might need to pick them up at a certain time every day. So often things need to be organised between two parents and all of that, and so there can be a big challenge when people are in a return to work situation. How what kind of time can you give to the job, and how can you get back and also look after the responsibilities that you still carry. The second one is emotional. A lot of people, particularly if we're talking about children and parents who are returning to work, having looked after children, have you thought through in terms of how you're going to feel, and are you prepared for that kind of emotional stress that some parents, quite often parents, go through. The next thing is the whole issue of your values. You no doubt have values with regard to your work and your career, but also they've got to be balanced. So you may be in a situation where there's a skills or a knowledge gap, and we covered that last week in the last session. There's a good deal of resources available. What we would say on that front is don't use it as an excuse for doing nothing. So often, if you the most important thing you can do with regard to a career is just get working. Financial matter concerns can impact. The cost of childcare can be very high, and it has to make sense to work, otherwise it can be a real problem, and locality is a problem. On the other hand, it is important that you don't sell yourself short, and there are a whole range of options in terms of getting you from where you are now to where you want to go, and ones that we would particularly suggest you look at is if you're not ready to do something on a full-time basis, or in a paid permanent job or whatever, look at doing it in some kind of a reduced level. So you might be seeking to get something on a part-time basis. At the very least, do something if you're interested in getting involved in an area, do something within that area on a voluntary basis. Further study is an option, and there's a whole range of options in terms of further study. Sometimes you might want to get a particular job, but you're not placed to get it. And the question you should ask yourself sometimes is the environment enough? So coming back to this issue of intellectual property, for instance, you might be able to get a solicitor role within within a law firm specialising in IP/IT, but intellectual property. But you might be able to get some other kind of a role, some kind of a backup, a support role. Would that be enough? And it would act more than likely as a stepping stone, and it would it gets you involved with people within the area that you want to work. The other thing you can do so often is to say, well, I'm having trouble getting this, but is there anything similar, anything else that I can do that is like it and would give me the same kind of fulfillment? It's a good approach to take. Cultivate as many alternatives as you can. It's an unwise thing to say, I'm looking for such and such a type of job, and that's what I want, and that's all I'm going to do. People who are most successful at job seeking are people who have a number of irons in the fire and a number of things that could go right for them. Quite often in quite different areas and quite a different focus in terms of the opportunities they're looking at. Also important is to, whatever, if you're interested in a particular area, for example, if you're interested in the whole area of family law, are there associations that you can join? When you check your plan against those kind of matters, against the realities of the job market, of the situation that the wider full life situation that you're in, you're going to then be in a situation where you can commit to your objective, to your goal. And at that stage, it's really important that you set yourself an action plan. An action plan is going to focus on things like what are you going to do, how are you going to do it, where are you going to do it, who needs to know, what support do you need, how and when are you going to get this support. So they're the kind of matters that need to be teased out and documented within an action plan. We do have a workbook that helps you go through the kind of matters that need to be covered, and we would recommend that you use this. There is another booklet that we provide as well within this session, and it's on, what is it on? Getting Organised. It's just an information leaflet on, there it is there up on the screen. Now, we're going to move on to CVs. And the whole business of drafting a CV is always key, but when it comes to people in a return to work situation, it's really important. What we've done is within the documents that we've supplied to people who are participating in this, we've given this little sheet here, quick tips on how to write a CV. It's a useful document, but also important, we would say, is that there's a booklet available. There it is up on the screen there, and this booklet is much more detailed in terms of the information provided about CVs, and you're welcome to a copy of this. If you don't have a copy, give us a call or send us an email, and we'll send you out a copy of it. It's got a number, about 10 different sample CVs, as opposed to the two that we've given you as part of this program. And there's an awful lot more information in it. That said, the important things to deal with on a CV we would are laid out in this slide here. The first thing we would suggest is that you ask yourself, why should the person you're targeting be interested in hiring me? So if you're looking for a job in family law and you've targeted somebody who's a family law practitioner and you're really keen that you can get working with this person, you've got to ask yourself, why would they be interested in me? Or you should ask yourself, it's a wise thing to do, ask yourself, why should they be interested in me? And your approach then should reflect what you believe you've got going for you. So if you've got experience in the area, or you've got contacts in the area, or whatever you've got you believe you can bring to the employer, it's important that this is reflected within your CV, and also in all approaches that you have with the employer later when you hopefully meet them. We would suggest that you shift in as far as you can from writing a biography to writing a brochure. So it shouldn't be about you, it should be, in as far as you can, it should be much more aimed at interesting the reader and getting them keen to meet you. We would say absolutely maximum 2 pages. A CV should never be longer than 2 pages. But quite often people who are in a return to work situation, a 1-page CV it can work best. If you don't have a huge amount to say for yourself, why try and stretch it out over 2 pages? You can, if you haven't been working the last few years, the likelihood is a 1-page CV will work best. If you do a 1-page CV and you use a 1-page CV, unfortunately you're still going to have to have a 2-page CV as a backup document, because so often an employer will say, well, you've given me a kind of a summary document here, can you give me something more detailed? So they'll want a 2-page CV sometimes. It's not a problem, because the best way of getting to a 1-page CV is to write a 2-page CV and then distill it down to a 1-page CV. And so often you find then that somebody has something that's really readable and really interesting. We would say don't put anything in your CV that isn't going to excite and interest an employer. So if you are looking for a job, as we just said, in family law or whatever, and you've got a lot of IPIT experience, if you put a lot of information about that into your CV, you're giving the reader, a chance to disregard you and to say, well, this person isn't like us, this isn't the kind of person that we're looking for. We would strongly recommend that you identify your achievements and the benefits that relate to those achievements, and that you include these within your CV. Nothing sets you apart than to put the kind of contributions that you made to an employer. So, and especially if you can talk in terms of the kind of benefits that they had, that they gained as a result of what you did. I am inclined to say the best line you can have in a CV is, in my last job I came up with an idea that saved my firm 5 or 10,000 euros a year. Why is that such a great idea? You don't, you're obviously putting yourself forward as an enterprising person, as a person with initiative, but you're not, and there's a benefit. The employer, has saved money as a result of your contribution. But probably most importantly is you haven't told them what it is, and so often that's the case with a CV. The best CV gives lots of little tidbits of information. Oh, I've got this and I got this, and and look at this, and don't forget about this, but not going into any great detail. That's what the best kind of CV that works. With regard to people who are in return to work type situation, something that they quite often have to look at, or it's recommended that you look at, is the whole area of format. Most CVs come in what's called a chronological format. I was in such and such a company or such and such a firm during the following dates, and I did this. Before that, I was in this firm, and between such and such dates, and I did the following. What tends to work better for people who haven't been working for maybe 2 or 3 years is a functional format CV, and that's something that I would recommend to you. And the 2 CVs that we've given as part of this session to participants are both functional format CVs. One at 1 page and the other one is a 2-page CV. A functional format CV works better if you haven't been working in the last 2 or 3 years, immediately before you're going looking for a job, and or if you've had a number of jobs, maybe small contracts. It also works exceptionally well if you're seeking to move from one kind of work to something quite different. So if your experience to date has all been within debt collection or whatever, and you're looking to get involved in family law, that kind of situation suits a functional format CV very, very well. What we'd say with regard to a functional format is they're very useful in certain circumstances, such as people in a return to work type situation. It shifts the reader's attention from, oh, this person hasn't got a job at the moment or hasn't had a job for a while, to, oh, look at the kind of experience that they have. It's particularly useful, as I said a moment ago, if you want to move from one type of work to something quite different. You can be creative, you can put the headings you use in terms of functions. You can use pretty much anything. And so, for example, if you're seeking to get a job in community development and you want to leverage your legal experience to date, you might use terms in terms of functions that are that people in community development would understand and identify with, and then put your legal experience under those. That's the nice thing about this format, is that it really, as the last point here says, you can do anything you want with a functional format CV. It is a format that particularly suits a one-page format, and I think the sample CV there, Lisa sample, is a good example of that. I think everything is nicely tied up over one page there. If that was laid out over 2 pages, I just think there would be it would lose its impact. It works, I think, very well on a type 1 page format. So we're coming to the end of what we've done is we've asked you to make sure that the objectives, goals you had, are good, and for, we ask you to check them against the old SMART measure. We ask you to think about realities one last time. Think about the full range of options open to you, and then hopefully you're in a situation, having done that and considered this. The material you've got, you're in a situation where you can commit to your objective, to your goal, and once you're in that situation, you can start doing an action plan. We would also have covered CVs, and we would hope that you can start working on a CV that maybe is better than the one you have at the moment, and is going to serve you better in the job market. In terms of homework, I'm asking you to watch 2 more videos, one by a guy called Nigel Marsh, which is about work-life balance, and one by Adam Leipzig, which is about the choices you make in terms of the work you do, and really how you view that work. I think that it's a particularly important one for solicitors. Too often solicitors can undervalue the work they do and the impact, the positive impact it can have on their clients. I'm asking you to draft the action, to draft an action plan. You can use that workbook, or you can do it yourself, and also, as I said, to start working on a CV. That's the end of session 1, and I look forward to, that's the end of session 2, and I look forward to talking to you again in session 3. Thank you. Bye.